Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, and I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. And today we have a special guest with us here on the State of the Saints podcast. And hey, if you watch the New Orleans Saints YouTube channel, pre and post game show, or just giving up-to-date information about the New Orleans Saints, you know this individual. She's working hard for the Black and Gold, giving us all the information that we need. I'm talking about Miss Erin Summers. Erin, how you doing?
Hi, I love that intro. I need you as my personal hype man.
Well, we do what we can over here.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Erin, for being here. We really do appreciate it. We know you're extremely busy covering the New Orleans Saints as well as the Pelicans. You know, you're working extremely hard and giving us the information that we need. So first off, I just want to say we all appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not, it's a busy job, but I'm covering sports and I can't really complain that much. It's definitely, the content is definitely fun.
Yeah, definitely. And we appreciate all the content that you put out there. But we're going to talk a little bit about the New Orleans Saints. As you know, the Saints are 1-2 right now. There's been some ups and downs. There's been some positive things. There's been some not so positive things. But the one thing that you hear everyone talking about is the team is talented, but they seem to be getting in their own way. The term shooting themselves in the foot has been said on several occasions.
Yes.
Just your overall evaluation, Erin. What is your thoughts on this team? As far as where they are right now.
On paper, I think everyone expected this team to be really good. You think about the additions that they have this year. Jameis Winston's back from injury. What we saw from him last year, the 14 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions before he got injured. You think that they're going to hit the ground running. If you're adding in Michael Thomas back from injury, Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, just the offensive weapons that they had on the field, you want to think, how can it not work? Just how can you not just put all these talented people out there and for it to work? And then on the defensive side of the ball, that's been an area that they've been solid in for a while, for several years now. So really no concerns, even though they had a little bit of turnover there. You add in Tyrann Mathieu and Marcus May. Seems like Paulson Adebo was just ready to take off this season. And then, you get to the first game and they start a little slow. It's to be expected. They haven't had a lot of time on the field together. Things really looked good in that fourth quarter against Atlanta.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where I think everybody's like, all right. It was a little tough, a little slow start, but we're good. Right. This is the team we thought we were going to see. Yeah. Unfortunately, week 2 and week 3, as you mentioned, a lot of those areas where they shot themselves in the foot, the penalties, the pre-snap penalties, stuff that just shouldn't happen, penalties you shouldn't be, continually doing at this point in the season, your career. And then the turnovers. In the last 2 weeks alone, they've given the ball away 8 times. And the defense has scored. The opposing defense has scored off of a touchdown immediately, off of a pick 6 and a fumble that was returned for a touchdown. Those things are not going to help you win a ball game, no matter who's on the field. So even though you're talking about some injuries that they've had now that they're dealing with across several positions, it's those mistakes that are going to limit them from creating that offensive rhythm for, capitalizing on some of the things that they are doing well. So regardless of who's on the field, whether it is Jameis Winston or Andy Dalton as the quarterback, whether Michael Thomas is going to be in the game, he will not be this weekend. They have other options, but you can't turn the ball over, and you can't negate a good play because of a penalty.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, you even alluded to those 8 turnovers. A couple years ago in 2019, they had 8 turnovers the entire season, because of how offensively efficient that they actually were. This is very unconventional, Erin. When you look at this team, this team was known for being offensively efficient, not shooting themselves in the foot. And now we've seen after these 3 games is a team that seems to be getting in their own way. And Aaron, also, there are a lot of members of the Who Dat Nation that are in panic mode right now. In your overall opinion, is it time to hit the panic button if you're a member of the Who Dat Nation?
We are 3 games in. I feel good about Sunday. Don't panic yet. It's okay. As I mentioned at the top, there are a lot of new pieces. And with one less preseason game, with the lack of reps that the starting group got together during training camp due to injuries, Jameis Winston's foot, Michael Thomas was in and out. Taysom Hill wasn't participating entirely. There are a lot of people that weren't able to get good run with each other. It's going to take a little while to mesh. Yep. And I think that they're still trying to figure that out. I don't think there's any reason to panic. They're professional athletes. They'll figure it out. They know that they can't turn the ball over. Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, they don't fumble, and they both have, and it was because of a really good play on the defensive side of the ball. They really went after that football because Kamara and Ingram had a good hold on it. You could tell that they were trying to protect the ball. So there's just been a few, really odd things that have happened. Even Will Lutz he's missed a couple, albeit long field goals, but last week a shorter one. You just don't think that that's something that's going to continue to happen either. So at this point, there are a lot of teams that start off really fast and kind of peter out, whether it is due to injuries or whatever, the wear and tear of the game. And then there are teams that just catch fire towards the end of the season, i.e. the Bengals last year, and they're in the Super Bowl. So, it's a long season, especially with an extra game now. I don't think that you need to kind of jump ship or try to fire anybody yet.
Well, I definitely agree with you on that. When you look at preseason, the way that it's structured now, you got a lot of guys that don't play in the preseason. And you're relying on these early games in the regular season in order for you to develop chemistry. And I mentioned this before. If you look at the landscape of the National Football League over the last couple of weeks, you've seen other teams that were struggling to try to generate points, struggling on offensive line. Watch Joe Burrow last night. I mean, before that game even started, his offensive line, they had 15 sacks as a group. So it's not only just the Saints that are dealing with some of these offensive woes and some of the miscues. Several teams around the National Football League, ones that are supposed to be legitimate contenders, they're also dealing with these type of issues. So it seems like you're all by yourself because you're probably focusing more on Saints news. But there are a lot of teams out there in the NFL that are trying to figure it out too, 3 weeks into the season. But one thing that we were trying to figure out early in the week was who was going to be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints going into the game in the UK in London this Sunday versus the Minnesota Vikings. And we heard about Jameis Winston. He's had issues with his back. I mean, everybody knows about that, the 4 fractured vertebrae in his back. We heard about, some of the issues he has with his ankle, also returning from an ACL injury. And now Andy Dalton got the majority of the snaps, and everything is leading to him being the starter. I'm talking Andy Dalton this Sunday. What are your thoughts on Andy Dalton? I mean, just watching him in the offseason, in training camp, there's a lot of positive things that were said about him, Aaron. What are your thoughts about Andy Dalton starting for the New Orleans Saints, and could he be this jump start that this offense needs to be efficient?
It's funny, when Dalton was signed this offseason, I was walking through the facility. I think I was in the cafeteria or something, and Dalton was sitting right there eating, hanging out. And I'm like, I swear we just signed him. He's already here working out, making it himself at home here, having lunch, kicking it. He's been here all summer, putting in the work, trying to get a grasp of the offensive playbook. It is a playbook that's been created over the past 10 years. Coach Payton's been here for a long time. So it's not a small book. It is there's a lot of plays that they have to get a hold of. And he went to work studying it, and he started working he was here for all of the OTAs with a lot of the younger guys. And I think that he's going to be able to fit in just fine. He's been in every single position in his career. He is a vet. He's a former 9-year starter. He's been a multi-year, 3-year, I think, Pro Bowler. So he's been in every situation. He's been a starter. He's been a backup. He's had to come in because in the middle of a game because of an injury. He's had to come in the middle of a season.
Yeah.
He's ready. He's prepared. And I think he's very confident in his abilities. And I think the team is as well. It's why they brought him in. It's because he was a very viable backup who could very well start for teams in this league still.
Yeah. I mean, I think that he's definitely a quality backup. I mean, we've seen all the games that he had when he was with the Cincinnati Bengals. Be that as it may, they had issues when it came to the postseason. But Andy Dalton was always a steady quarterback. He always was a guy that you can rely on. I always talk about AJ Green, his success as a wide receiver. He has to give a lot of credit to Andy Dalton because he was the one throwing them the football. Mm-hmm. And he does have those capabilities. And, I think that what the Saints are looking for at this particular time, with all the issues that they're dealing with offensively, this is a guy that can come in. It may not wow you, as far as his arm talent or some of his ability, like you see some of these younger quarterbacks, the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens. But what he is a guy that is not going to really take too many calculated risks, and he's not going to really cost you the game. And I feel like that's something that the Saints offense needs at this particular point. You need to start to see some of those drives develop, as well as the running game. Also, we talk about Andy Dalton, but we have to talk about the protection as well. It seems like there's been some issues on the offensive line. It doesn't seem like they've been working as a cohesive unit as of yet. Aaron, what are your thoughts on the offensive line? And do you feel like it's something that can be fixable as time progresses?
Yeah, I know that they're putting in a lot of work on that area, and they have a pretty similar group to what they had last year. Really only losing, the one player on the line, and then you add in James Hurst, who is somebody who's played several years in the league and has played multiple positions, and really likes the fact that he's able to focus on just playing that left guard position this year. I think that they will figure it out, albeit they'll be without Andrews Pete this week, so that changes things up a little bit. But Calvin Throckmorton played a lot last year. He did get a lot of good reps, so hopefully that's a seamless transition, having him in the line to start things off this Sunday. I think it's just a little bit about, just the timing, getting on the same page, a little more communication. And I think this week has really helped in general. A lot of different position groups and a lot of the players get to know each other a little bit outside of the game of football. Just kind of get to understand who the guy that they're playing next to is, what makes him tick, what he likes, the way to communicate with him, because that's a big part of it too. Not only knowing what the player is capable of on the field and knowing your role and your position and what you're supposed to be doing, but developing that camaraderie with the people you're playing with. And they were able to do that going to London right after the game on Sunday, spending a lot of time together. They went to a soccer game. They've been going out to dinner. They've been going shopping. They've been doing a lot of stuff earlier in the week when they had the time off per usual. They're not just goofing off there in London. They've spent their time practicing as well. But the Saints rented out an entire hotel. They've taken over the entire place, set up a whole training facility, training room, workout space. So they're really spending a lot of time just together, just them in this makeshift facility compound over there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is beneficial, as tragic as hurricanes can possibly be. I mean, last year, you had Hurricane Ida, and that forced the New Orleans Saints to have to go to Dallas, and they were in that hotel, and first home game for the New Orleans Saints took place in Jacksonville. But I think the reason why they were so successful in that game was because they really didn't have any choice but to be in closed space together, So even in dark clouds, there are some silver linings, and the silver linings were that they were that close together, and they were able to, get on the same page in order for them to go up against one of the most formidable teams in the Green Bay Packers and really put a whooping on them. So we're hoping that, we can replicate that, type of experience. The fact that you just alluded to them going early right after that Carolina Panthers loss and being to get together, maybe that can translate on the field on Sunday. But speaking of the game on Sunday, the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings been a little bit up and down as a team. Also, they beat the Green Bay Packers pretty soundly in Week 1. Then they took a step back against the Philadelphia Eagles on prime time. Got a win again, this past week. And now they're going against the New Orleans Saints, who are trying to figure it out. I mean, you have to believe that the New Orleans Saints have to be prepared, even though this isn't a do or die game. You have to believe that it feels that way. But what are your thoughts about the Minnesota Vikings versus the New Orleans Saints, and what do the New Orleans Saints have to do in order to get a victory over the Minnesota Vikings?
Stop the run and hold on to the ball, force some turnovers.
That sounds pretty simple, but
yeah, right. No, so the Saints, they're I think allowing on average 138 rushing yards per game.
Right,
it's pretty a lot. The first game, a lot in the third. They were able to keep Tampa Bay in check for about 78 yards on the ground.
Right.
The Vikings, however, are one of 3 teams in the league who have allowed over 110 yards rushing every single game. So they are consistently allowing a lot of yards on the ground. So if Alvin Kamara can get going, because he's, I would think, underperformed so far this season, averaging about 60 yards of scrimmage, which is about 40 or more less than his average overall. He's usually over 100. So if he can get going and kind of take advantage of some of what they may be lacking as far as their run defense goes, that would be great. On the opposing side, the Saints have to find a way to stop their dual threat in Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook, Kamara, both drafted in 2017. Both have just been dominating the league at their positions since then. 2 of the best to do it. It's, Cook is going to play. He's been dealing with that shoulder injury, but he's definitely going to go. So it's going to be interesting to see which one of those 2 players has the better day, which defense, comes out on top of that matchup as well. And then you look at the offensive threats outside of the run game. Justin Jefferson has done very well historically for the Vikings. He's been kept in check the past 2 games. Against the Lions this last game, he really performed well in the game 1 against the Packers, but you said, they kind of blew the Packers out there, but he had 184 yards, a touchdown, only 9 receptions. So he was very productive with his catches. So that's what you don't want to happen. You don't want him to have another breakout performance like that. Marshawn Lattimore's done a really good job keeping him in check. So that's a matchup to watch. And, the defense for the Saints have just really talked about how they need to affect the ball. They need to create some turnovers. And as we spoke about, the Saints offensively, they need to mitigate those mistakes and not have as many of them.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the Minnesota Vikings, if they're struggling, I mean, this could be a replica of what we've seen on Christmas when Alvin Kamara ran for 6 touchdowns. I don't think we wouldn't be mad at a performance like that. But the Saints know the type of team the Minnesota Vikings are. The Minnesota Vikings have been like the Achilles heel to the New Orleans Saints, especially when it comes to the postseason. So they know the type of team that the Minnesota Vikings are, and even though they're probably dealing with some issues when it comes to stopping a run, you can't take a team like this for granted, and I think they know that. I agree with what you said at the beginning of your statement. I mean, ball security is key, and I think if they hold on to the football and they're able to sustain drives, I think they should be successful this Sunday in London. But Aaron, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on the State of the Saints podcast. Before you go, can you let everybody know how they can get in touch with you?
Definitely. You can follow me at Aaron E. Summers on Twitter. Usually tag about everything that I do over here with the Saints, so you can check it out on NewOrleansSaints.com. Or if you care about basketball at all, that's about to get started as well. So you can head to Pelicans.com and find all of our stuff there. And I will say before I go, Alvin Kamara scored his first ever career touchdown in London. The Saints played Miami in 2017. So you talked about the energy when they last played the Vikings on Christmas Day. He had 6 touchdowns, great game. Let's have those two, moments collide and just have him explode on Sunday, right?
Yeah, I think we all would love that. We're all looking for offensive explosion coming from the New Orleans Saints, because as a Saints fan over the last 15, 16 years, that's what we've grown accustomed to. So hopefully we can find that lightning in a bottle one more time. But Aaron, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on the State of the Saints podcast. And we look forward to all of your commentary on Saints.com and also dealing with the New Orleans Pelicans as well. You take care.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
All right. Shouts out to Aaron, man. Shouts out to Aaron Summers. Y'all make sure that y'all follow her on Twitter and social media as well. She does an outstanding job. Pre and post game show covering the New Orleans Saints. We'll be back in a minute to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Vikings game. Keep it locked right here to the State of the Saints podcast. All I gotta say is, who dat?